So each one of these presses has an adjustment screw. It's how you adjust how far up and down this moves. You got a different die thickness, you need to make it tighter, or whatever part variance. The problem is these like to move on their own because it doesn't have a locking nut from the factory, which is insane. It should. So they sent us what it's supposed to have, so we'll take it apart and put it on. So I've got my jack in there, releasing the nut. You see we've got separation. I've got the bolts off the counterbalance, and I'm going to cycle the press over, and hopefully I can get that bolt to come out so I can thread this on. First thing I'm going to do, turn the air on. Those should lift up out of the way then, which will also then allow me to engage the clutch. Pull that thing up. That worked well. Now we'll go ahead and get these last two bolts out of here. That'll put all of the weight down on here. See if I bring the jack up. So now the jack has all the weight. We'll go from there. Well, the jack has the weight. These are supposed to be, you know, hand doable, which makes life nice. Oop. All right. So now all of it is in the jack. If I let the jack down, that'll separate. Slow as the jack's gonna go, so from here I'm gonna cycle the press up to the top. Take that, pull that out of the way. I should be able to thread that off and thread that on. It'll lock her in. Going better than I thought. Alright, we got that guy on. Now we'll put this guy back. Thread her back down. Oops. Can't get those in. Back it off. Put them back in. Try again. Sometimes you gotta do it twice. Whatever. Make life easier with the other two presses. That's better. Now we begin the pain in the butt process of that. Alright, it'll go better with two hands. Would have needed 5 hands to do that. Duct tape it. Jeez, I tell you, man. Anywho, got that going better now. Let's run this thing down back to where it was. I pulled a measurement from here to the bottom of the nut, so I'll probably just go ahead and bottom that guy out on that wall so I can just measure from the bottom of that to there. That should be pretty freaking close to right where she was, and I don't have to fuck with it too much. That'd be nice. Alright, we got this nut back where it belongs. I'm going to now release that, and I will use that press to raise the ram assembly up into the connection rod. And then we will tighten these bolts in and then tighten that up against it. Alright, we got the connecting rod back in place. Now we're going to raise the ram up into it. and this is why. You do it with the bottle jack versus the press, because if you just stroke that over, that would crash into that. But when it's like this, I'm not strong enough with one hand, but I can move it into place and be very gentle with it and get it in. That way, I don't just crank that thing down with the press and smash it. Got it in place better now. And I ran out of stroke. Isn't that lovely? That's how it has to go. Anyway, just now I need to block this thing up and restroke my press, and we'll be there. All right, I got it rebunked. I got some more stroke. Clearance all the way around. Nice and easy. We're gonna have to watch, because that's a precision fit in there. You should not stick your finger in there, by the way. But I can get my bolts started, so that's what we will do. All right, we got the bolts all started, with the exception of the one that goes in that hole back there. That also will correspond with that hole. That, when this piece is clamped to that with this bolt, it will now mean that that locks that into place, which is locking this from rotating. This rotates slowly this way as the press runs, which reduces the height of the stroke, which then makes bad parts. And if you're not paying attention, you start making a bunch of bad parts. Well, that's not good. So we'll get that into place. Now it is time to just gently get that a little closer. See, it's about to hit. Now you should be doing these by hand with a ratchet as you get that precise fit to reinsess up into there. You don't want to cram it in with a jack. You could really mess that surface up and have to take this all back apart again. You'll never get it together. And you pray that you get it apart. So just take your time with a wrench and do it right. All right, I can see the gap is tighter here than it is here. So that means I'm going to use a wrench on this side first and start to bring those surfaces back together. Maybe some gentle taps with hammers, keep stuff aligned, because it is that counter bore down in there. You can't see it anymore, but that has to be aligned properly. So you can see that gap is closing. Just tighten this one a little bit, and we can only turn where that flat spot is. Turn back over to here. We fight it for a while because the angle's horrible. We get virtually no turn. We try again. And we just keep repeating that back and forth until that thing's tight. Okay, fast forward a few days over the weekend. That didn't work because this bolt that's going to go through here is longer than that bolt. And in the last clip, you remember this was all the way down. Well, this bolt alone couldn't even get in there, and this bolt can't get in there. So what's had to happen is I've backed this adjustment screw all the way down and out of this guy. See, there's the top of it. I'll go around and get all these bolts tightened up just like last time. And then I will get this guy in there when this is all the way up to those bolts basically. And then we will thread that entire assembly down to the height it needs to be. One more turn, and it'll be done. All right, here we are, 4.5, a little bit less to that shoulder, which is what it was before, which would mean my die height will be correct when I put the die back in. I'll have to do a final tweaking once it's making parts. Now, we'll go ahead, tighten this bolt back here, which will hold this from rotating. Then this will get tightened to the screw, which ultimately keeps that screw from rotating and automatically adjusting die height as the press runs. That bolt is now tight, that bolt is now tight, which will keep this from rotating. Now it's time to get my stuff out of the way, get that all clean. We'll put the die back in. It is now time to worry about putting the die in. To do that, this bed has to be clean. It also has to be flat. If there were burrs in here or any high spots created during all of this, the die will not sit in here correctly. So you can just move these around and you'll feel if there's a high spot. Nothing I'm worried about. That's ready to go. We'll get the die and get it in. Now I've got to bring the press down to get that into place. So to do that, we turn her off and start and wait for the speed to come up. While it's doing that, put it back into inching. Did I ever mention sometimes I'm really stupid? How am I supposed to get that in the backside? Start over. And that's why it's a problem, because you can't get that bolt past that, because these are integral T-bolts, not T-nuts. If it was a T-nut, that wouldn't be such a problem. I'm still getting used to that. Fixed it. I want to bore you with all the T-bolts. It's not very exciting. Back to that. So once you get the lock in the top, now I'm going to have to bring it down, snug these up, and it's time to align the die. That's going to be another video. Alright, the die is aligned. Go through, tighten tie downs. Then you double check the alignment. And that's it. That's basically the fun of putting a lock nut on, plus getting it back up and going, dies in. Now all I'm going to do at this point is feed material. Might make a more detailed video on that later. Thanks for watching.